Let me just clarify this, Mr. Webb. When you were given the ballot paper and you ticked the box, I strongly agree that Kate Middleton should get a job, it's because you think specifically she should be Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yes. It's very important.
I see.
Fairness, she hasn't spent all our money propping up the banks, so overall, less annoying than previous chancellors, I would suggest.
I think, actually...
Only slightly.
Value for money. We get value for money from the royal family. We really do. They bring in more than we expend on them by a significant margin.
Yes, in essence, I believe that to be true, although the buildings that we have already paid for do play some part in that picture.
Sure.
I don't think, and I'm not actually a Republican, but I don't think if we did get rid of our royal family that people would go, well, I'm not going there anymore. I mean, unless we, in getting rid of them, smash the buildings down using them.
I mean, I used to be a Republican, and I'm not anymore. Partly because I'm a clergyman of the Church of England and the Queen is the Supreme Governor, OK?
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I think it's key when you look at the election, I think it's good to have someone at the heart of public life who is not party political. I think it gives you... You know, some people might say that what you could have is a president do that, but where do you get presidents from? And I'm not saying the royal family doesn't have its own political affiliations as kind of rich, landed, aristocratic kind of people. Of course they do. But I do think there's something about that which transcends party interest, and that's one of the reasons why Britain's a good place to live, on the whole.
Let's wind that up, anyway. No job for Kate Middleton. She isn't lazy, she's just old-fashioned. And if she becomes Queen Catherine, that will be a full-time job. And by full-time, I mean she'll never have to do anything ever again, and by job, I mean the opposite of job. Let's move on to our third and final received opinion.
He's a man with a plan, got a counterfeit dollar in his hand. He's Mr. Know-it-all, playing hard, talking fast, making sure that he won't be the last.
Richard Dawkins. He knows everything, doesn't he? He's a confident atheist, or at least he says he is. You can never be sure about a man's religious convictions until you've sat next to him on a turbulent flight. Nevertheless, Dawkins has persuaded the world, and 72% of our live audience, that atheism is a more rational position than faith. In other words, the atheists are the smart, insightful, scientific thinkers. The believers are gibbering, superstitious loons. Luckily, we have one of those gibbering, superstitious loons right here. Reverend Richard Coles, what's wrong with eliding atheism and rationality?
I would put it the other way around. I think I'd want to know what's irrationality. Now, if by irrationality you mean standing on one leg in cost cutter saying, I'm Napoleon, fly me to the moon, then clearly that's irrational. If you suggest that the deep truths of living sometimes do not conform to expected patterns, if that's irrational, then I'm irrational. And I think, I mean, essentially with Richard Dawkins, I met him a little while ago and I was a bit scared, you know, it's kind of like meeting the Antichrist for me. And he came beetling over to me and he said, oh, you're Richard Coles, aren't you? And I said, yes. He said, I Googled you, we've got the same birthday. And I thought, typical Aries. But he was absolutely charming, and I think he's brilliant. I think what he's done to put the ideas of Darwin within the reach of a general readership is absolutely fantastic. But all that intelligence and all that subtlety seems to just get switched off when he gets to religion, because I think it annoys him so much.
Marcus Brigstock, what do you think of the atheist movement?
Well, I've got quite mixed feelings about it, really. I mean, I am an atheist, but by default, really. Because atheism's not really a thing. It's an absence of a thing. It's saying, and I'm not one of them, which is fine as far as it goes. But, I mean, I don't like fennel. And I don't hang out with other anti-fennelists. You know, so I think a lot of it is irrational. I mean, I have to... I read The God Delusion and I read Christopher Hitchens' book, God Is Not Great, and they're well worth a read, regardless of what you believe. I mean, they lay out very clearly how mankind has turned to religion when we'd have been better off facing the issues directly in front of us, how religion has hindered educational advances, how religion has led us...
By inventing the university, by inventing the school.
Yes.
I think what... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was leading to a point in your favour, to be honest.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, no, I mean, they show how, how religion has hindered educational advances. They show how religion has led us time and time again into appalling acts of violence, and even go so far as to suggest that religion may be holding us back from our next evolutionary step. All of which is very well argued in both of these books, until you realise that you can replace the word religion with the word alcohol. And suddenly, all of the same things stack up in exactly the same ways, and it's quite disappointing. If you read The God Delusion and just replace the word God with beer, it still makes a great deal of sense. But there is a more serious point behind that flippant joke, which is that, people do seek comfort in mad and crazy things.
Can I just say as well, it's a mistake to think that people do religion because they seek comfort. That's
Do you
incidental.
think so?
No, you seek it because you seek something dynamic that offers a transformation of how you live, that offers life in its fullness. It's not comfort, it's challenge, actually.
Natalie, are you a Dawkins fan?
That's a tricky one. I am, because, like Richard, I think he's a tremendous arguer, and I like people who do polemic. I find it interesting. But I am not an atheist, which will surprise those 8 people who bought copies of The Atheist's Guide to Christmas, in which I had an essay. I wrote the piece, but I am agnostic, because I think it's the smartest, most rational position you can choose, because it seems to me that atheism is a very definite thing to say. I definitely think there definitely isn't. I know that there isn't a God. Well, I don't know that. And when I was about 19, I read Protagoras, because I didn't go out much. And there's a very good quote at the start of book of Protagoras, which is, on the subject of the gods, he says, I am unable to say whether they exist or not. There are many obstacles to such knowledge, including the brevity of human life and the obscurity of the subject. And I went, yeah, that's me. That's how I feel. There it is right there. And that was quite a while ago now, and I haven't really... I kind of went, yep, that's it. That's why I'm agnostic. I'm agnostic because I think it's unknowable. I don't have the resources required to know more than I do. So, agnostic, and therefore I find atheism a strangely irrational position to take.
What do you get of religious people doing religion? I mean, did you go to a carol service, Natalie? Would that kind of stuff offer anything to you?
I quite like singing.
Yeah.
But I don't get asked to carol services. I get asked to do the Godless Christmas shows, so I do those.
I've
I
been
like
asked
doing
to do
those.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't get asked to a carol service.
Wait, you've been
would
asked
go.
to do the Godless Christmas show?
Yes.
Did they have a wrong number?
It was that no. I was on a discussion programme with that nice man who runs it, and I pounced a fag off him afterwards, and we were chatting, and he said, would you like to come on the Atheist Show? I thought, yeah, why not? Church of England, of course.
Agnosticism strikes me as the most rational.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Position.
But the thing is, no one understands what it is, so you go, I'm agnostic. Oh, I can't make your mind up. No, giving it more thought than you have. Duh.
Although there are quite a few agnostics for whom no further research seems to be necessary. Do you know what I mean? They just go, yeah, I don't know, tricky. Yeah. I was going to look into it, but there's a new season of The Wire out on DVD.
The novelist Gabriel Garcia Marquez said, I don't believe in God, but I'm afraid of him. That's basically my attitude to TV detector vans. I sort of know they don't exist, but I don't want to risk the fine. That's quite a common attitude, though, isn't it, Richard? I mean, is that what agnosticism is? Saying I'm not sure, but I'm not prepared to take the risk?
People get terribly worked up about belief, and I think I used to, because I was an atheist until I was about 29. And when I was 28, I remember thinking, in a world of uncertainty, at least I know I will never be religious. 6 months later, I was signed up. And it's not about... people worry about you have to believe things, that it's got to be all neat and orderly. And I think perhaps that's symptomatic of the times we live in, where people do want a certain model of rationality which suggests that things do need to be neat and tidy. But actually, the really important things that inform our lives that we live by are not neat and tidy. And I'm sure that's just as true for Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and Daniel Dennett as it is for me.
What's baffling to me as a non-believer is not that you might believe in God, is that you believe in that God. I don't find the Hitchens-Dawkins position comforting or comfortable or anything. I would like to believe in God, but the Christian God, the Muslim God, the Jewish God, you can keep him. He is absolutely revolting. He's racist, he's misogynist, he's genocidal, he's
Okay, look,
paranoid.
first of all,
Can I just respond to that?
Yes.
And then all bets are off when you get to, I have to say, Jesus Christ, when that's all off.
Who
It's game over.
endorses the Old Testament. I mean, I'd love to believe in Jesus.
Transcends the Old Testament and offers you a new way of living, an end to cruelty, destructiveness, self-seeking, new life, life in its fullness.
And can I also say, Marcus, that the person who believes that the Old Testament is literally the Word of God is the person who smacks Leslie Grantham in a supermarket for the way he treated Angie. I mean... You don't have to read it word for word, and that's not the point. The point is not whether you like God, whether you understand or can know God. It's whether it is more rational, therefore, to believe that there is no God. You can't say, just because I don't like what it says in the book, he doesn't exist.
I mean, it kind of is more rational to say there is no God, if you're going to compute evidence in that sort of way. But my point would remain that actually what's, as Oscar Wilde said, doesn't it, the truth is never... likely and rarely simple or something like that. I can't remember what way. And it's true, isn't it? The kind of deep things which inform you, the stuff you remember on your deathbed, are not things which necessarily conform to a kind of easy formula. It's mysterious and paradoxical. And what I love about religion, the way I try to do it, is that it allows me to live with some honesty and integrity, cross fingers, with that sort of paradox. And I find that rich and rewarding.
But also it depends on the kind of God you want. Right? I mean, a good example of rational God-believing is the king of the Greek god Zeus, who's always coming down to earth and impregnating women, and then they have demigod children. Well, if you were a woman and married to a king who'd gone off to fight a war somewhere and you inadvertently got up the duff, then going, Zeus did it. It's a rational position.
I like the Norse gods, the gods of the northern pantheon. They'd do for me very nicely if I wasn't signed up already.
So you've got a plan B in place. The Church of England doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Let's draw the programme to a close. But is this really the end? Or will it carry on afterwards in some other form? We can't be sure. Actually, we can be sure it's the end of the programme. Thanks very much to my guests, Richard Coles, Natalie Haynes and Marcus Brigstock. Good night.
Heresy was written and presented by Victoria Corrin with additional material by Charlie Skelton. The show was created by David Baddiel and produced by Brian King. Heresy is an Avalon production for BBC Radio 4.